Chapter 6680. Have Bai Luchuan and Guan Hongtian been up to anything recently? Bailey Hongzhuang asked after putting away the invitation. Gong Jun shook his head slightly. I don't know what's wrong with them, but they've been very quiet recently. Nothing's happened. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang was relieved. It wasn't until Gong Jun left that she sat down on a stone bench in the courtyard. There was a thoughtful look on her face. Master, what are you thinking about? Xiao He jumped onto the table and tilted her head to look at her master in puzzlement. I'm just thinking that Bai Luchuan and Guan Hongtian have been too quiet recently. It's a little strange. Perhaps they know that master is not to be trifled with, so they've temporarily stopped. I hope so. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. Although in my heart, they aren't such tactful people. As the city lord's birthday approached, the entire Xian city seemed to be livelier. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Bewitching hadn't come out of seclusion, she thought that perhaps only she and Gong Jun would be going together today. However, just as she was about to set off, Bewitching exited his cultivation state. Wife, are you ready to set off? Bewitching stood up. His picturesque eyebrows were beautiful to begin with, and his gentle voice was even more touching. I thought you wouldn't be able to make it today, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Wait for me for a moment. I'll change my clothes. All right. Boss, wait. Just as Bewitching was about to go in to change his clothes, he saw a round figure roll in like a ball. There was a look of anxiety on his face. What's the matter? Stopping in his tracks, Bewitching looked at Gong Jun in puzzlement. Could something have happened at this critical juncture? Who knew that after Gong Jun stopped, he had a smile on his face. Boss, today is the city lord's birthday. We have to dress formally. You and madam usually dress too simply. I specially sent someone to customize a set of clothes for you today. Quick. Put on the clothes I prepared for you. Gong Jun handed the clothes in his hand to Bewitching, his eyes full of anticipation. Today is the city lord's birthday, not ours. Why do we need to dress so grandly? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. She had never spent too much effort in this regard, as long as she was not rude. You usually like to wear white, but today is a happy occasion. It's not good to wear white. Listen to me and change. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and felt that Gong Jun's words were very polite. Looking at the red and white clothes in her hand, it was very appropriate, so she did not refuse. All right then. Wait for us for a moment. We'll come out after changing. Soon Bailey Hongzhuang finished changing. Feeling the texture of the clothes, a look of satisfaction appeared on her face. Gong Jun had obviously spent some effort on the clothes. The material was very comfortable. It was as thin as a cicada's wing, and had a great touch. The size was indeed tailor-made. Wife, I'm done. Bewitching slowly walked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. His face was full of smiles like a spring breeze, or like spring returning to the earth. Looking at the handsome man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be shocked. Chapter 6681. Hongzhuang had always known that Bewitching was extremely good-looking, but this appearance of wearing luxurious clothes gave her a completely different feeling. Bewitching looked at the woman in red in front of him, and a trace of amazement flashed across his brows. Different from her usual elegance and purity, there was a trace of enchanting charm, which made people's eyes light up. Oh my God, this is amazing! Gong Jun looked at the two people in front of him in admiration, and couldn't help but applaud. My taste! TSK, this dress suits you too well. Looking at Gong Jun's exaggerated expression, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching couldn't help but chuckle. All right, you don't have to show off. It's not appropriate to be late on a day like today. Let's go now. The three of them walked towards the city lord's mansion, and along the way, they met many people who were also going to the city lord's mansion to deliver gifts. Looking at such a large scale, Xiao He couldn't help but say in surprise, there are actually so many people attending the city lord's birthday banquet? This is simply a grand occasion. Gong Jun smiled faintly. You don't know this, but it's the city lord's birthday banquet. Everyone naturally wants to express their sincerity, but most people only send congratulatory gifts. There aren't many who actually attend. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. This kind of situation couldn't be more normal. The city lord's status in the city was not to be underestimated. Especially when doing business, everyone had to rely on the city lord. On such a day, even if they weren't qualified to attend, they definitely couldn't be lacking in etiquette. When the three of them arrived at the city lord's mansion, they saw City Lord Bai Ziyuan and Bai Qingli standing outside the door to welcome guests, congratulatory voices resounding everywhere, and the entire city lord's mansion was filled with a joyous scene. "Miss Bailey, young Master D, you're here." After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Bai Qingli quickly walked over, a rare smile appearing on his handsome face. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and cupped her hands. "Congratulations, we're here to celebrate the city lord's birthday. Come, please come in." Bai Qingli waved his hand, and a servant took the congratulatory gifts from Gong Jun's hands, and the three of them walked in front of Bai Ziyuan. "Congratulations to the city lord on his birthday." After seeing them, Bai Ziyuan smiled. "Thank you, please come in." Almost everyone who came here was trying to find a way to say a few words to the city lord. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others no longer bothered them, and under the personal guidance of Bai Qingli, they entered the city lord's mansion. Unlike the outside, it was 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 not as luxurious as the outside. At the inside, it was not like the inside. There was a feeling of a secluded mountains. At this moment, there was an endless stream of servants and maids. All kinds of fruits and snacks were constantly being served, and the wine and tea emitted a faint fragrance. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. She hadn't seen such a lively scene for a long time. "There are many snacks prepared here. If there's anything you like, just try it. There's no need to be restrained." Bai Qingli was very friendly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Looking at the man's rosy face, she smiled and said, "It seems that you've been doing well recently." Chapter 6682. Thinking of this, Bai Qingli was extremely grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang. He was also very aware of how good the medical skills of the pharmacists in the city lord's mansion were. So when he heard from this person that Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were far better than his heart was shocked. Because Bailey Hongzhuang was just too young. Although he was also shocked when he was saved, he only understood how difficult it was for him to keep his life after coming back. This was also his luck. The heavens left him a way out. "This is also because you've been recuperating since you came back." Seeing Bai Qingli's complexion, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that he had recovered. The self-destruction of humans and monsters were different. Although she and Beichen were injured, their foundation was not damaged. Compared to Bai Qingli, their injuries were much lighter. "That's right. The city lord of Qingyang City I told you before will also come today. When the time comes, I will think of a way to get the illusion form bead for you. Don't worry." Bai Qingli gave her a look. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's life-saving grace, the cultivation resources he gave her back then were nothing. He had always felt like he owed her. Fortunately, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang cared a lot about the illusion form bead. As long as he could find the illusion form bead, he would have a way to repay her. Seeing the man's serious appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment before saying, "Then thank you, Sir Bai." She really did need the illusion form bead, but with her status, it was too difficult to get it from the city lord of Qingyang City. It was much easier for Bai Qingli to do this. "You're welcome, it's what I should do." Bai Qingli smiled and said, "You guys take a seat first. I still have to greet the guests. Hurry up and get busy." Only after Bai Qingli left did Bailey Hongzhuang and the others continue to walk inside. "Beichen, you guys are here." Hearing a surprised voice, Di Beichen turned his head and saw Di Xiaofeng, Mo Yunjue, and Zhongli Mu walking over. "Today, you guys." Di Xiaofeng looked at the two people in front of him with surprise. "Looks really extraordinary." Zhongli Mu was also surprised. "You guys look really good today." Suddenly being praised, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and heard him say with a smile, "This is all Gong Jun's idea. If you're interested, ask him to tell you the name of the shop, and you can order a few custom-made." Di Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows. "The weather is getting colder. Yunyan should buy some clothes. Gong Jun, you have to tell me later." Big brother, there's no need for you to worry. Leave it to me. Gong Jun was as friendly as ever. Ever since he found out that Di Xiaofeng was Beichen's big brother, he called him that. Di Xiaofeng didn't care about this. This guy's personality was like this, but it wasn't annoying. Look, Bai Luchuan is right in front. Di Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows and pointed not far away. Bailey Hongzhuang followed the line of sight, and sure enough, she met Bai Luchuan's gaze, which was still too late to retract. It was full of resentment as usual. From this, it could be seen that even though this guy had stopped for a while, this matter was still on his mind. Chapter 6683. Upon hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang revealed a look of understanding. As expected, this guy was definitely not someone who would stop easily. After being locked up for a few months, I'm afraid he hates us even more now, Mo Yunjue said coldly. Guan Hongtian is right beside Bai Luchuan. These two fellows might pull some dirty tricks when they get together. You guys have to be prepared. At this moment, a slightly unfamiliar voice sounded behind Di Beichen. Everyone could not help but turn their heads. Gong Jun looked at the stranger in front of him with a complicated expression. They didn't have any interactions with this person, but he suddenly said such words. It seemed that he understood their situation very well. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the man in front of her. For some reason, she vaguely felt that she had seen this person somewhere before, but she could not remember where. She did not have a deep impression of him. However, after Di Beichen looked at the man for a moment, the corners of his lips curled into a faint smile. So it's you. I really didn't expect you to be first in this competition. If I had known, I wouldn't have told you, the man said with a chuckle. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard this, she thought carefully for a moment before remembering where she had seen this person before. That's the person who told us to get the numbered identity card back then. Miss, you have a good memory. I thought you had forgotten about me. The man chuckled. Let me introduce myself. I'm Mu Haiqing. Just as Di Beichen was about to introduce himself, he heard the man say, Young Master Di, Miss Bailey, I already know. Everyone has amazed everyone in the demon-slaying competition. There aren't many people in Shiyin City who don't know you. I didn't expect to see young Master Mu here again. Nice to meet you. Mu Haiqing cupped his hands. It's fate that brought us together. I don't have any ill intentions. I just want to remind you that I vaguely heard that Bai Luchuan and Guan Hongtian seem to have some plans. In short, these two people are full of evil tricks. It's always good to be on guard at all times. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows revealed a trace of surprise. This person is really interesting. Could it be that he likes to meddle in other people's business? If it were an ordinary person, they would definitely not be willing to offend Guan Bai Luchuan. They would not get involved in such matters if they could. However, this person actually took the initiative to get involved. After saying this, Mu Haiqing turned around and walked away. This person is strange. He said such a sentence without any rhyme or reason. I wonder if he is a friend or foe. Di Beichen looked at Gong Jun. Have you heard of this person? Mu Haiqing, this name sounds familiar to me, but I can't recall it at the moment. Let me think about it first. Gong Jun's brows were tightly knitted. It was obvious that he had some recollection of this person. Seeing this, Zai Hongren didn't urge him. Even if Gong Jun really couldn't remember, after the birthday banquet was over, he would go back and check. However, Gong Jun's memory did not disappoint everyone. Very soon he remembered everything. I remember now. This Mu Haiqing. Quickly tell me, who is he? Zhongli Mu asked curiously. Gong Jun's expression changed. Speaking of this Mu Haiqing, he is also a character. However, he and Bai Luchuan can be said to be mortal enemies on the surface. Chapter 6684. Speaking of which, back then, Bai Luchuan and Mu Hailan were a match made in heaven, attracting the envy of many. City Lord Bai had always liked to fulfill the wishes of others. After learning of their feelings, he set up a marriage contract. At that time, Mu Haiqing and Bai Luchuan's relationship was very good. However, Bai Luchuan was a womanizer. Back then, he liked Mu Hailan because she was beautiful, but as a man, there were many who changed their minds. Not long after the marriage, Bai Luchuan continued to be a womanizer. Later on, this matter became more and more strained. Mu Haiqing was very angry when he saw Bai Luchuan treat Mu Hailan in such a way. He often found opportunities to teach Bai Luchuan a lesson. Bai Luchuan wasn't weak either. When the two of them fought, they naturally won and lost. A wistful look appeared on Gong Jun's face. I remember that Mu Hailan was already pregnant back then. However, Bai Luchuan had another fight with Mu Haiqing. When he returned and saw Mu Hailan crying, he was extremely angry. The exact situation that day has been sealed by City Lord Manor. All we know is that Mu Hailan died that night. From then on, Mu Haiqing and Bai Luchuan became mortal enemies. After hearing all of this, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression gradually turned cold. As a woman, Mu Hailan's experience was truly worthy of sympathy. I originally thought that Bai Luchuan was terrible enough, but I never expected him to be so terrible. She couldn't determine how Mu Hailan died, but she was certain that it had something to do with Bai Luchuan. Such a man is worse than an animal. Di Xiaofeng spat inwardly. As a man, he looked down on such people the most. Mu Hailan was blind back then. She actually fell for such a fellow. What a pity. Gong Jun shook his head. What I can be sure of is that Mu Haiqing really hates Bai Luchuan. The reason why he has been staying in Xi'an City is probably to kill Bai Luchuan to avenge his sister. Bailey Hongzhuang and company had a look of understanding in their eyes. If they were in Mu Haiqing's shoes, they would probably want to kill that bastard. From the looks of it, Mu Haiqing is on our side, Di Beichen said slowly. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Mu Hailan's help and his reminder made sense now. Then what did he remind us of just now? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. After finding out that Mu Haiqing was not an enemy, his previous warning became very interesting. Mo Yunjue looked around and his face darkened. Don't tell me they're going to play some tricks on this occasion? I don't think there will be any problems with today's situation. Gong Jun's expression also became a little more serious. Today, almost all the reputable people in Xi'an City were here. If something were to happen, it would be very embarrassing. Let's wait and see. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was as usual as she walked to the side and picked up a piece of pastry to taste. So far nothing had happened. If they were too nervous, they would be at a disadvantage. Qingyang City's city lord has arrived. At this moment, a loud voice sounded from outside the door. Hearing this voice, everyone present could not help but look outside the door. In their line of sight, a tall and straight figure slowly appeared in front of Bai Ziyuan. Brother Yang, welcome, welcome. Chapter 6685. Haha, you're an honored guest. It's not a big deal today, so I've troubled you to come. Bai Ziyuan smiled. You're treating me like an outsider. We've known each other for many years. How could I not come to your birthday celebration? Yang Han turned to the man and woman behind him and said, Quickly greet Uncle Bai. Uncle Bai. Bailey Hongzhuang saw a very young man and woman. The two people's eyebrows were somewhat similar. Obviously they were brother and sister. Nephew and niece are both here. Quickly come in. Bai Ziyuan called Bai Qingli and Bai Luchuan over. You young people can interact with each other. Father, don't worry. Bai Qingli nodded. Bai Ziyuan did not continue to stand outside the door. Clearly, he had been waiting outside for City Lord Yang's arrival. As everyone took their seats, the banquet officially began. City Lord Bai was not very formal, so the entire City Lord's mansion was very comfortable. Xiao He and Xiao Bai ate the snacks in front of them to their heart's content. The food the City Lord's mansion took out to entertain people was naturally not bad. It was much better than what they usually ate in restaurants. During this process, many people took the initiative to befriend Di Beichen and the others. After all, they were first place in the demon slaying competition. There was no harm in befriending such young talents. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell into the distance. There were many alchemists participating in the banquet today. Ever since the competition ended, she had wanted to get to know some alchemists. She did not know much about the demon crystal alchemy, and she had never tried to refine it directly. If she could take advantage of today's opportunity to befriend a few people, it would be very good. However, she did not know much about the people of Xi'an City. It was not appropriate to rashly disturb them. In this regard, Gong Jun was also unable to help. He was a businessman. Although alchemists often dealt with shops and auctions, they were often unwilling to pay attention to such occasions. It was as if this was the only way to show their noble temperament. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was deep in thought, Bai Qingli walked over again. "Miss Bailey, let me introduce you. This is Apothecary Wei Weixiang. He is also the apothecary who often treats me." A man who looked to be in his 50s stood beside Bai Qingli. Unlike the arrogance of the other pharmacists, he had a kind of amiable kindness. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang, he was the first to smile. "Little friend Bailey, nice to meet you." "Greetings, Medicine Master Wei," Bailey Hongzhuang said politely. "Ever since Medicine Master Wei saw my injuries, he's been hoping to get to know you. Since we're all here today, why don't you have a chat?" Bai Qingli winked at Bailey Hongzhuang and transmitted her voice. "Medicine Master Wei is very famous in Xi'an City. He can be considered a highly respected senior." "Thank you." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She secretly thought that Bai Qingli was very smart. She knew what she needed and immediately sent it over. Since this person was highly respected, he must be very skilled in alchemy. If she did not understand anything, she could ask him for advice. "Little friend Bailey, I saw that Qingli's injuries were very serious. I wonder what kind of medicine you used to improve his condition?" Chapter 6686. It's indeed inappropriate for me to rashly ask about this. However, this old man has been racking his brains recently and still can't figure it out. I hope that little friend can enlighten me. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't reject Wei Shang's politeness. "Senior, at that time, I could only do my best to treat her." Bailey Hongzhuang knew very well that if she wanted to know what she wanted to know from the other party, she would have to tell him something first. Therefore, she didn't hide this point. After all, the more sincere she was now, the more difficult it would be for Wei Shang to avoid answering her questions later. As she explained the meaning of the treatment method at that time, a trace of understanding appeared on Wei Shang's face. "It turns out that these few medicinal herbs have such a curative effect when added together. It's really enlightening. I was a bit stubborn before." After Wei Shang understood, he finally understood that when many medicinal herbs were put together, they would have a completely different effect. The method that Bailey Hongzhuang mentioned was like the finishing touch. Usually, people wouldn't use such a method when treating people, and changing the way of thinking would give them a completely different feeling. Seeing Wei Shang's look of sudden realization, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a little funny. This situation was just like when she listened to Granny Hua's explanation. Granny Hua's attainments in this field were definitely not comparable to ordinary people. At that time, she was in this kind of new thinking every day. However, as her thinking expanded, she realized that there were many ways to treat people, and changing the way of thinking often had unexpected results. However, there was one thing that she didn't tell Wei Shang. The effect of these medicinal herbs was excellent, but Bai Qingli's injuries were too critical at that time. Even if she used these medicinal herbs, she might not be able to recover. The reason why she was able to completely recover was because she used the Saintis crystal. This kind of treasure was not something that ordinary items could compare to. Naturally, its effects were needless to say. Obviously, Wei Shang didn't think too much about it. He probably didn't know how serious Bai Qingli's injuries were at that time. "Little friend Bailey is so young, yet you already have such shocking attainments in the field of medicine. This is truly admirable. In the future, your name will definitely resound throughout the immortal realms." Wei Shang looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. With just a few words, he had already discovered that Bailey Hongzhuang had a completely different way of thinking from them. This kind of thing was already very shocking at the moment. In the future, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang continued to develop, her influence would definitely expand rapidly. "Senior, you flatter me. I don't dare to be your senior." "To be honest, your comprehension in this aspect is much deeper than mine," Yi Zichen said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. Looking at the situation, wasn't Wei Shang a little too careless? "Little friend, you can just call me by my name. After all, you're much younger than me. It's not good for me to address you as my senior. How about we treat each other as equals? Looking at Wei Shang's expectant expression, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head. She couldn't help but think of the few old fellows she knew in the past. They also had the same personality. It was really nostalgic. Then I'll overstep. No. Chapter 6687. Wei Shang's status among the pharmacists in Xi'an City was not simple. Guan Hongtian did not expect Bai Qingli to take such good care of Bailey Hongzhuang, and specially introduce her to Pharmacist Wei. From the way they chatted happily, Pharmacist Wei should also be very fond of Bailey Hongzhuang. He had thought that these guys had just arrived in Xi'an City, and that it would be easy to take them down. He did not expect that in just a short period of time, these guys' foundation would become more and more stable. Young Master Lu Chuan, Bai Qingli takes such good care of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. If this continues, it will be even more difficult for us to take them down in the future. Guan Hongtian looked to his side worriedly. Previously, due to the framing incident, the Wanbao Pavilion's reputation had been greatly affected. Their business had also suffered a lot. On the other hand, the Immortal Treasure Pavilion's reputation was becoming more and more resounding. In the end, the Immortal Treasure Pavilion had always relied on Di Baichen's confinement killing array and Bailey Hongzhuang's pills. In fact, he knew very well that although the two of them had always been providing the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, they had put more effort into cultivation. Therefore, these could only be the Immortal Treasure Pavilion's last resort. However, recently, some pharmacists and refiners in the city had turned to the Immortal Treasure Pavilion for sale. This made him very unhappy. Evil King's beloved wife, arrogant demon concubine, is too heaven-defying. In the past, the Wanbao Pavilion had always been everyone's first choice. Isn't it all because of your incompetence in the past? Bai Luchuan looked at Guan Hongtian with disdain. It was clearly a good hand, but this guy had ruined it. I didn't expect this to happen. Then why didn't you buy a few more array stones back then and study them properly? Wouldn't you have found the problem if you had observed more? Bai Luchuan said coldly. Guan Hongtian was speechless. He had indeed failed in that matter. But leaving a mark on an array stone was indeed something that had never happened before. Be careful in the future. If something like this happens again, don't expect me to help you. Yes. Bai Liuchuan's gaze turned to Bailey Hongzhuang. This woman was becoming more and more smug. It made him very unhappy. Let's wait for a good show today. I'll let them have a good taste of what it's like to be defeated. His pitch-black eyes narrowed slightly, revealing resentment and viciousness. Because of these guys, it was the first time he had been punished by the city lord, and he had been confined for so long. It was simply a great humiliation. Sister Qinxue, why are you here alone? I thought brother was taking care of you. Bai Luchuan walked to Yang Qinshue's side with a smile. Yang Qinsue raised her eyebrows. Brother Qingli brought Pharmacist Wei over there. They must be busy. Having said that, Lu Qinyue's gaze constantly fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Bai Luchuan took in everything as a plan surfaced in his mind. So Big Brother went to look for Miss Bailey. No wonder. Miss Bailey. Yang Qinshue's expression immediately changed when she heard this name. Clearly, she had been silently paying attention. Bai Luchuan nodded calmly. Previously, Big Brother was injured in the demon-slaying competition and almost lost his life. It was all thanks to Miss Bailey that he was saved. She is Big Brother's savior. Chapter 6688. Miss Bailey has indeed saved Big Brother's life. However, her strength is also extremely outstanding. Her medical skills have also reached perfection. Currently, who knows how many men in the entire Xi'an city have fallen in love with her. However, ordinary men are obviously unable to enter her eyes. Bai Luchuan smiled, and there was a trace of yearning between his eyebrows. In Yang Qinshue's eyes, it was his admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang. These words just happened to poke at the problem that she was most concerned about. She had always been known as a beauty, but after coming here today, she found that this woman's appearance was simply astonishing. Even she couldn't help but feel a sense of inferiority. If she did not see it with her own eyes, It would be difficult to imagine that such a peerless beauty existed in the world. When she saw Bailey Hongzhuang's sweet smile, she felt more and more jealous. Brother Qingli had never been close to women. However, this Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed a little too special. Medicine Master Wei, I also have something to ask you. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Wei Shang had recovered from the previous question, she took the opportunity to ask her own question. Little friend, there's no harm in asking. I heard that the demon crystals of monsters can be used to refine pills. This is the first time I've seen a monster. I'm really curious about this demon crystal. I hope Medicine Master Wei can give me some advice. Hearing this, Wei Shang understood and immediately said with a smile, I see. All medicine masters who have just entered the chaotic immortal realm are usually very interested in this. Today, I'll explain it to you. Thank you, Medicine Master Wei. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. She was originally worried that her question would delay Wei Shang's time. It would be bad if she made him impatient. However, she did not expect Wei Shang to be so interested in chatting with her. She was completely relieved. Actually, many medicine masters only began to study the demon crystals after the appearance of monsters a few years ago. The demon crystals of monsters are usually blood red and have different attributes. However, most of them are of the dark attribute. As long as the impurities in these demon crystals were removed, the remaining energy could be said to be very pure. If used in medicine, the effect would be excellent. According to our observations, pills of different attributes only need to be refined with demon crystals of different attributes, and the quality of the pills refined will be higher. So it has such an effect. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly understood. She had also thought about this before. Don't look at how it only increased the quality of the pill by one level. In fact, the gap between the two was very big. It was the same medicinal herbs, but with the addition of demon crystals, the effect of the elixir had improved so much. Perhaps the commonly used pills weren't much, but there were some pills that cultivators couldn't take too many times. Naturally, the better the effect, the better. Even so, it's not easy to refine the impurities in the demon crystal. Wei Shang looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's happy expression and knew that she was oversimplifying things, so she deliberately emphasized the main point. The demon crystals of these monsters often contain a lot of violent qi, blood, cruelty, and other negative emotions. Only by completely removing these things can the best effect be brought out. According to our current progress, there are very few medicine masters who can completely remove these impurities. Aside from a few occasional situations where it could be done, it was extremely difficult to do so at any other time. Chapter 6689. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded in understanding. Monsters hadn't been around for a long time, and all the pharmacists in Xi'an City were probably researching them. It would take a lot of time to thoroughly study them. However, she had a few more tricks up her sleeves than the average pharmacist. Since she possessed both darkness and light attributes, it would be easier for her to remove the impurities compared to people with other attributes. Regardless, she would go back and do some research after today's birthday banquet. Wei Shang saw the expression on Bailey Hongzhuang's face and understood that his words had not stopped her curiosity. Thinking about it, such a young girl already had such achievements. Even if she spent more time studying it, what's the point of it? As a pharmacist, it was important to maintain some curiosity. Little friend Bailey, you haven't been in Xi'an City for long. Coincidentally, there are many pharmacists here today. How about I introduce you to the other pharmacists? Wei Shang loved Bailey Hongzhuang from the bottom of his heart. At his age, the happiest thing for him was to see a young person doing well. There were many people in the city whose medical skills couldn't compare to Bailey Hongzhuang's, but they were much more impetuous and arrogant. Bailey Hongzhuang was such a simple-minded girl, but she was like a clear stream, making people like her very much. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up and saw the kindness and admiration in Wei Shang's eyes. She nodded in agreement. Thank you very much, Pharmacist Wei. You're welcome. With your strength, as long as you continue to stay in Xi'an City, you'll get to know these people sooner or later. After greeting Bewitching, Bailey Hongzhuang followed Wei Shang to where the other pharmacists were gathered. Pharmacist Wei. Pharmacist Wei. The pharmacists who were chatting happily restrained themselves when they saw Wei Shang appear. Their postures were respectful. Wei Shang smiled faintly. Long time no see, everyone. Pharmacist Wei is usually busy studying medicine and rarely goes out. Naturally, it's rare to see him. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to meet him today. Pharmacist Wei. This one has something to ask of you today. In the blink of an eye, the group of pharmacists had surrounded Wei Shang. As for Bailey Hongzhuang behind him, she was completely ignored. Seeing this, Wei Shang suddenly spoke up. Everyone, please calm down. We'll talk about this matter later. Today, I'd like to introduce a little friend to everyone. He turned his head and pushed Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him. Little friend Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills are already outstanding at such a young age. As Wei Shang's voice fell, everyone's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Although many people there, SSSS, TS. Now that this girl had appeared in front of them again, they couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. But when they heard Wei Shang call Bailey Hongzhuang little friend, they understood Wei Shang's admiration for her. So it's little friend Bailey Hongzhuang. Nice to meet you. I've long heard of yours. Seeing you today, you're indeed extraordinary. The few compliments were scattered. Just by listening to them, one could tell how distant they were. Chapter 6690. When Wei Shang saw everyone's attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't help but frown. Could it be that something had happened that he wasn't aware of? Otherwise, everyone's attitude was a little strange. You all really know how to act. A man looked disdainfully at the people who were feigning civility. This smile is uglier than crying. I don't know what's so funny. Niu, don't go overboard with your words. How am I going overboard? Isn't that the truth? Niu's face was full of disdain. I think that Miss Bailey is not only outstanding in medical skills, her poison skills are also first class. I really admire you. His drawn-out tone was full of ridicule, and even the stupidest person could understand that he was deliberately insulting her. However, Bailey Hongzhuang acted as if she didn't hear any of this and smiled faintly. You flatter me. Niu's expression was blank, and his heart was instantly filled with anger. As a doctor, you actually poison people. I can't learn this kind of method. After coldly throwing this sentence, Niu turned around and walked away. His manner clearly showed that he disdained to be associated with Bailey Hongzhuang. When the crowd saw that someone had taken the lead, they couldn't be bothered to pretend anymore, and retreated to the side with waning interest. Wei Shang obviously didn't expect this situation. According to his conversation with this girl, he felt that this girl was very polite, and wasn't like what everyone said. Medicine Master Wei, I've let you down. Hongzhuang naturally didn't care about the thoughts of others, but she couldn't help but feel apologetic towards Medicine Master Wei. However, these fellows were all too petty. It had been quite a while since that incident, and they still hadn't let it go. This breadth of mind. I didn't understand the situation clearly. Wei Shang shook his head with an apologetic look on his face. Little friend, can you tell me what happened just now? Bailey Hongzhuang didn't mind, and immediately recounted what had happened. After hearing everything, Wei Shang laughed. I see, no wonder everyone has such an attitude. You don't mind? Wei Shang said indifferently. As an alchemist, if you can heal others, you can naturally harm others as well. At this point, who can say that they have never harmed others? They are merely trying to save face, so there is really no need to care about it. However, from your appearance, I believe that you do not take it to heart. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. It's not a big deal. I'm already very happy to have met you today. Haha, so do I. The two chatted for a while before Wei Shang left. Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to find Beichen, but she found a figure blocking her way. Looking at the beautiful woman in front of her, there was a trace of surprise in her eyes. Wasn't this person City Lord Yang's daughter? You like Brother Qingli? Yang Qinxue stood in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and got straight to the point. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Yang Qinxue in astonishment. This girl had suddenly appeared in front of her and asked such a strange question. However, she quickly understood that Yang Qinxue must be in love with Bai Qingli. Yang Qinxue had originally thought that all women couldn't resist looking at Bailey Hongzhuang up close. However, after looking at Bailey Hongzhuang up close, she found Bailey Hongzhuang to be even more perfect. Miss Yang, you're mistaken. I have no feelings towards Master Bai. Chapter 6691. If you like him, then you like him. What's there to deny? Yang Qinxue looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with some disdain. If you admit it frankly, I can still think highly of you. Being so timid makes me unhappy. Seeing Yang Qinshue's worried, jealous and conflicted look, Bailey Hongzhuang also found it very interesting. It was rare to see a girl with such a genuine temperament. I'm already married. Faced with Yang Qinshue's disbelief, Bailey Hongzhuang could only use her ultimate move. The effect of this move should be the most obvious. Sure enough, after hearing this, Yang Qinxue was dumbfounded. You, what did you just say? Bailey Hongzhuang pointed at Bewitching not far away and said, That's my husband. Bewitching noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's actions and walked over. As soon as he came over, he said, Wife, what's wrong? After hearing this address, Yang Qinxue completely understood that she had made a mistake. She felt that she had thought of him as an imaginary enemy for a long time. But it turned out that he was already taken. She did not have any improper thoughts at all. Immediately she felt awkward. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Yang Qinxue felt ashamed for a moment. She cursed Bai Luchuan in her heart. It was all his fault for saying such inexplicable things to her, causing her to come here and embarrass herself. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, Mistakes are common. Miss Yang is a thoughtful person. I'm sure you'll get what you want. Looking at the woman's understanding look, Yang Qinshue's face turned red. Her original thoughts of tit for tat dissipated. Such a woman really made people want to befriend her. Thank you for saving Brother Qingli. If there's anything I can help you with in the future, don't hesitate. After understanding this point, Yang Qinxue returned to her original straightforward personality. Then I'll thank Miss Yang first. You're welcome. I should be the one thanking you first. Yang Qinxue smiled and waved her hand. You guys continue chatting. I'm leaving. Seeing Yang Qinxue leave like a wisp of smoke, Bewitching thought of the previous changes, and his heart had some understanding. It seems that Madam has been treated as a love rival? Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head and saw Bewitching's jealous face. She immediately smiled and said, I have such a good husband. How could I be involved in such a thing? With just one sentence, Bewitching's face turned from gloomy to sunny, as bright as the sun. It must be Bai Luchuan and company who wanted to cause some trouble. However, I never expected wife to be so efficient. Bailey Hongzhuang followed Bewitching's gaze and realized that Yang Qinxue had already rushed to find Bai Luchuan. Is Bai Luchuan stupid? He clearly knows our relationship, but he still said such words to make Yang Qinxue misunderstand? The woman frowned slightly. She really couldn't understand this method. It was really unwise. Bewitching held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. That's because he doesn't know that wife's love for me is stronger than gold. He only thinks that she's like an ordinary woman, trying to curry favor with a powerful man. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Isn't this fellow underestimating me too much? At the same time, Yang Qinxue was aggressively questioning Bai Luchuan. This fellow was deliberately messing with her and embarrassing her. Chapter 6692. Yang Qinxue looked at Bai Luchuan suspiciously. She originally wanted to teach this fellow a lesson, but when she saw his puzzled expression, she was immediately puzzled. Could it really be like this? Bailey Hongzhuang only glanced at it and did not continue paying attention. There was a hint of thought in her eyes. Could this be the matter that Mu Haiqing came to remind us of? Bewitching also calmed his thoughts and said, If it's just this, then it's too simple. As the daughter of Qingyang City's city lord, Yang Qinshue's identity was naturally not simple. However, once the matter of a love rival began, it would naturally be very complicated. However, it was also very simple to resolve it. If this was the only big move that Bai Luchuan had prepared, then it would be too simple. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Her point of view was the same as Bewitching's. There should be something that they had not noticed. At this moment, the two city lords were chatting happily. Seeing that City Lord Yang was chatting happily, Bai Qingli took the opportunity to make his request. Illusory form pearl? When City Lord Yang heard that Bai Qingli wanted the illusory form pearl, surprise appeared on his face. Could it be that your demon beast is unable to take human form? Bai Qingli saw that although City Lord Yang was very surprised, he did not show any signs of unwillingness on his face. He knew that there was hope for this matter. Uncle, the one who needs the illusory form pearl is not me, but my friend. Hearing this, City Lord Yang was even more puzzled. His gaze unconsciously swept across Yang Qinshue's face. Your friend. Up until now, he knew very well that Bai Qingli spent most of his time in seclusion. Although he had friends, he did not have many. At this moment, he actually came to ask for the illusory form pearl for a friend. This was really not in line with his character. He had always hoped that Bai Qingli could be together with Qinshu. However, he did not know whether the friend he mentioned was a man or a woman. Bai Qingli clearly didn't realize these problems and immediately nodded. This person is my savior. If it wasn't for her, I'm afraid I would have lost my life this time. After returning from this trip, I have always wanted to repay her. Coincidentally, I heard that her monster beast is unable to take human form, and this illusory form pearl is exactly what she needs. Therefore, I want to use this to repay her kindness. I hope that uncle can part with it. Only then did City Lord Yang understand, and the vigilance in his heart dissipated a little. Bai Ziyuan also said, Brother Yang, this illusory form bead isn't of much use to you. So why don't you give it to my son? Aren't you very interested in my calligraphy and paintings? If you like it, why don't you choose one later? City Lord Yang's eyes lit up. You brat, you usually treat that painting like a treasure. I didn't expect you to be so generous today. Of course I have to repay you for saving my life. Today I'll be generous. City Lord Yang chuckled. Since that's the case, I naturally won't be stingy. I'll just give this illusion form bead to you. A round bead emitting a dazzling luster appeared in Yang Han's hand. It was the illusory form bead that could help demonic beasts transform. Master, Xiao He looked forward excitedly. From the moment the illusory form bead appeared, it clearly sensed that this was a treasure. Xiao Bai's eyes also lit up. Could this be the illusory form bead? Why do I feel like this is what I've been missing? Chapter 6693. It seems that you won't be far from transforming. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai with a smile. She had been thinking about how to let the two little fellows transform into their human forms, but she couldn't find a way. However, as long as they obtained the illusory form pearl, they would be able to see Xiao He, or Xiao, Bai transform into their human forms. The only helpless thing was that there was only one illusory form pearl at the moment. If the two little fellows wanted to transform, they naturally had to find another illusory form pearl. Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't in a hurry, since she already knew that such a treasure existed in the world. If she could find the first one, there was probably a chance to find the second one. It was only a matter of time. Xiao He and Xiao Bai couldn't hide their excitement. Bai Shi and Xiao Xuanzi had followed their master for a shorter time than them, and had long transformed into their human forms. Only they were still in this state. Fortunately, they had finally found a way to change. Bai Qingli is still very trustworthy. She said that she would fight for the illusory form pearl for us, so she will fight for it. Xiao He looked at Bai Qingli, who was not far away, and immediately had a good impression of him. Just as Bai Qingli was about to take the illusory form pearl, Bai Liuchuan's voice suddenly sounded. City Lord Yang, this Miss Bai Li's medical skills are known to be the best in Xi'an City. I previously asked her about your young master's condition, and she said that there shouldn't be a problem. Why don't we ask her to help treat him? As soon as these words were said, the originally joyous atmosphere immediately froze. City Lord Yang's expression suddenly turned cold, and he quietly retracted his outstretched hand. Bai Ziyuan's expression also changed as he looked at Bai Luchuan with a hint of reprimand. For him to say such words in this kind of situation, He was clearly rubbing salt in the wound. However, Bai Ziyuan also understood that the reason why Bai Luchuan did this was to prevent Bailey Hongzhuang from getting what she wanted. This fellow had been locked up for so long, but he still hadn't figured this out. It was really disappointing. Bai Qingli's expression also darkened. How could he not understand that this was City Lord Yang's taboo? Bai Luchuan had actually mentioned it in front of so many people. City Lord Yang's mood would definitely be affected. What's more, because no alchemist had been able to cure him all these years, and there was an alchemist who looked down on everyone and said outrageous things. City Lord Yang never had a good impression of alchemists. If he had a good impression of Bailey Hongzhuang previously, because she had saved him, then Bai Liuchuan's words had completely destroyed City Lord Yang's good impression of Bailey Hongzhuang. I don't know what kind of ability this Miss Bailey has to speak so arrogantly. It's really unexpected. City Lord Yang sneered. He had already taken back the illusory form bead. From his cold expression, it was clear that it would be very difficult to obtain the illusory form bead again. Uncle, there might be some misunderstanding. Miss Bailey isn't that kind of person. Bai Qingli couldn't help but say. In that case, Luchuan is lying? City Lord Yang asked. Bai Qingli's voice faltered. Although he knew that Bai Luchuan was looking for trouble, he couldn't say all of this in front of so many people. Otherwise, wouldn't he be completely disrespecting Bai Luchuan? Bai Luchuan naturally knew that Bai Qingli had no other choice under such circumstances. Immediately, he became even more fearless. Chapter 6694. This sudden change caught everyone off guard. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw this scene, her expression turned gloomy. So, Bai Liuchuan's real plan is here. At that moment, Bailey Hongzhuang understood everything. The reason why Bai Luchuan had said those words to Yang Qinxue was to make her hate him. When these things happened again, Yang Qinxue would definitely help him. However, he didn't expect Yang Qinxue to directly question him. In fact, if it were any other woman, they would only feel resentment under such circumstances and wouldn't ask directly. He had just misjudged Yang Qinxue's personality. Bewitching frowned slightly as his deep eyes revealed a trace of coldness. Xiao He and Xiao Bai had always held a high position in their hearts. Transforming into human forms had always been their wish, but Bai Luchuan wanted to destroy all of this. It was truly abominable. Hongzhuang, does City Lord Yang's son have a hidden illness? Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but ask when he saw this. He had previously noticed City Lord Yang's son. He was young, handsome, and had an extraordinary manner of speech. It didn't seem like there was anything wrong with him. My world, City of Dreams. Bailey Hongzhuang also turned her head to look. This person doesn't seem to have any problems on the surface. I didn't notice it before, but from City Lord Yang's taboo appearance, there should be a problem. If that's the case, wouldn't it be fine if you can treat him? Di Xiaofeng's brows were filled with concern. He was very confident in Hongzhuang's medical skills. Bai Luchuan knows that Hongzhuang's medical skills are good, but he still said such words. It seems that this young master's illness should be very difficult to treat. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken the initiative to give Hongzhuang a chance to become famous. Mo Yunjue said slowly in a deep voice. Di Baichen nodded slightly. Today, I'm afraid that not only does he want us to fail to obtain the illusion form bead, but he also wants City Lord Yang to hate us. When Mayor Yang saw that Bai Qingli didn't say anything else, his face remained gloomy. Even when he looked at Bai Ziyuan, there was a trace of anger. Looking at Yang Han's appearance, Bai Ziyuan secretly sighed in his heart. This matter was originally Yang Han's taboo, and it had been mentioned in front of so many people. At a glance, many people were quietly sizing up Yang Lingfeng, guessing exactly what kind of hidden illness he had. Vampire Daddy, Unparalleled Queen, City Lord Yang, this matter. Bai Qingli wanted to say something more, but she was stopped by Bai Ziyuan's gaze. Now that things had come to this, it was useless for them to say anything more. If he continued, it would only make Yang Han even more unhappy. City Lord Yang also understood that today was Bai Ziyuan's birthday. Naturally, he couldn't be angry with him. However, he didn't mention this matter again. At this moment, Yang Qinshua's voice suddenly sounded. Father, I got to know this Miss Bailey earlier, and felt that she was a good person. She shouldn't be speaking without thinking. When these words came out, everyone present was stunned. They didn't expect Yang Qinshu to speak up for Bailey Hongzhuang at this time. Bai Qingli looked at Yang Qinshu in surprise. She knew Qinshua's personality very well. Generally speaking, it was already good that she didn't provoke others. It was really unexpected that she would take the initiative to speak up for them. Chapter 6695. Yang Qinshua's words were very skillful. According to Bai Luchuan, Bailey Hongzhuang was young and impetuous and thought highly of herself. However, with her words, it became that she indeed had true ability and wasn't bragging. Yang Han was in a bad mood, but with his daughter speaking up for him, the dissatisfaction in his heart dissipated slightly. He knew Qinshua's personality very well. If the other party didn't have some ability, she would definitely not speak up for others. Bai Qingli looked at Yang Qinshu gratefully. He had already promised Bailey Hongzhuang today. If he couldn't fulfill it, it would be difficult for him to explain. Although he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't blame him, he still couldn't help but feel depressed that he couldn't do what he had promised. Yang Qinshu also winked at Bai Qingli. Ever since she found out that the girl was married, she no longer had any enmity towards her. If she could help Qingli Gij complete this repayment, it would undoubtedly be for the best. Among everyone, only Bai Luchuan had a look of disbelief. He had gone through so much trouble to make Yang Qinshu feel dissatisfied with Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, not only was she not dissatisfied, she had even become a helper. Since Qinshu has seen it, I'll give you this illusory form bead. Yang Han sighed. Although his expression was still somewhat ugly, he still decided to hand the illusory form bead to Bai Qingli. After all, it was something he had promised. As an elder, it wasn't good for him to not relent. It was just that his impression of Bailey Hongzhuang was still not good. Thank you, uncle. Bai Qingli's voice was filled with excitement. He quickly put away the illusory form bead. It was as if the illusory form bead would be snatched away if he was a step too late. Upon seeing this scene, Yang Han couldn't help but laugh. How could he usually see Bai Qingli in such a state? Bai Liuchuan's expression was extremely ugly. He had deliberately appeared at this moment to ruin everything. Who would have thought that this calculated step would be so easily destroyed by Yang Qinshu? Bai Ziyuan heaved a sigh of relief and said to Bai Qingli, "Your uncle Yang is really good to you." "I know." Bai Qingli smiled. The next moment, Bai Ziyuan turned his gaze to Bai Luchuan. As the slightly cold gaze swept over him, Bai Luchuan knew that something was wrong. The city lord was an intelligent and farsighted person, and this little trick of his would definitely not escape his eyes. He knew that he would be punished. And he had yet to complete. If he were to return, and if he was punished, wouldn't he be a huge loss? With this in mind, Bai Luchuan almost immediately made up his mind. "Luchuan, go back first. Uncle Yang, since this Miss Bailey's medical skills are so good, why don't we let her treat you? She told me earlier that she was very confident. If she could succeed, that would be a good thing." Bai Liuchuan's face was filled with excitement. His look of anticipation made him look like he was wholeheartedly thinking about Yang Lingfeng. Not far away, Yang Lingfeng's face turned ugly when he heard the matter being brought up again. Was to be. By. Chapter 6696. Go back and reflect on yourself now. His cold voice was filled with anger and dignity. Bai Ziyuan no longer gave Bai Luchuan any face. This kid was becoming more and more lawless. He had repeatedly caused trouble at his birthday banquet, just to avenge his personal grudges. It was obvious that he didn't take him, an elder, seriously at all. Seeing Bai Ziyuan's furious appearance, Bai Luchuan was somewhat stunned. For a moment, he stood there in a daze and forgot to move. Even though he had already expected Bai Ziyuan to be angry, he didn't expect him to be so angry. He had never seen such a furious appearance before. Seeing that Bai Ziyuan was angry, Yang Han didn't say anything. He only looked at Bai Luchuan with a hint of dissatisfaction. It had been a while since he had come to Xi'an City, so he naturally didn't understand the grudges. However, no matter how ignorant he was, he understood that there should be some grudges between Bai Luchuan and Bailey Hongzhuang. Otherwise, he wouldn't have kept causing trouble. Since there was a personal grudge, and considering Bai Qingli and Qin Shua's previous attitude, he roughly understood that perhaps all of this wasn't what Bailey Hongzhuang had said at all. It was just Bai Luchuan adding fuel to the fire. Everyone had been young and impetuous, so they were naturally no stranger to such methods of harming others for their own benefit. However, Bai Luchuan actually wanted to use him to deal with the young lady. What did he take him for? Yang Han narrowed his eyes and immediately came up with a plan. Since Luchuan is recommending her so seriously, I believe Miss Bailey's medical skills are indeed extraordinary. Otherwise, you wouldn't have needed to spend so much effort to recommend her. Then, after the banquet ends, I'll ask Miss Bailey to help with the diagnosis. With that said, Bai Ziyuan and the others looked at Yang Han in surprise. Brother Yang, Miss Bailey's medical skills are indeed not bad, but she's still a little young. Bai Ziyuan was a little worried. He admired this young girl very much. To be able to achieve such results at such a young age, as long as she continued to work hard, her future achievements were needless to say. Regardless of whether it was for the sake of Bailey Hongzhuang or for the sake of protecting young cultivators, he did not wish for Bailey Hongzhuang to get involved in this mess. Yang Han waved his hand indifferently. You don't have to be so worried. I'm just giving it a try, because of Liu Chuan's recommendation. Would I make a move on such a junior? Even if it's for the sake of you and Qingli, I wouldn't go that far. Seeing the sudden change in Yang Han's attitude, Bai Ziyuan felt a little relieved. They had known each other for so many years, and he knew that the former's personality was not the source of his ruthlessness. Things like venting his anger should not happen. He must have been angry with Lu Chuan, so he decided to give it a try today. Thinking of this, Bai Ziyuan sighed and shook his head. He used to think that Lu Chuan was a good seedling, who would become a great talent in the future. Who would have thought that after all these years, his personality would become more and more narrow-minded? He also understood the hatred between young people. In the end, this hatred was between Guan Yi and Bailey Hongzhuang. It had nothing to do with Lu Chuan at all. He just wanted to be in the limelight and get involved. Instead of doing these useless things, it was better to cultivate properly. This was really putting his energy in the wrong place. Chapter 66-97. When Bai Luchuan heard that City Lord Yang was willing to give it a try, he couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. He knew very well that this matter had always been City Lord Yang's sore point. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't cure it and knew about it, this matter would inevitably become a thorn in City Lord Yang's side. But at this moment, seeing City Lord Yang's attitude, he felt that things didn't seem to be as he thought. What was going on with this completely different trajectory? Logically speaking, this shouldn't be the case. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were completely relieved after seeing Bai Qingli obtain the illusory form bead. They didn't have to worry about anything else for the time being. At least this thing had fallen into their pockets. With the City Lord's character, even if he was displeased later on, it was impossible for him to take this thing back. Bai Luchuan is really hateful. Fortunately, his scheme didn't succeed, hee. Xiaohei snickered. Previously, when City Lord Yang took the thing back, she was really disappointed. She didn't expect that the thing would come back after such a short while. Her mood fluctuated greatly. Bai Luchuan went for wool, and came back shorn this time. A city lord narrowed his eyes. His wise gaze swept across everyone on the stage, and finally landed on Bai Luchuan's somewhat blank face. Anyone who could become a city lord must have some skills. Their ability to see through people's hearts was also top-notch. If he didn't understand before, then when City Lord Yang agreed just now, he clearly felt the change in attitude. I originally thought that this guy had some ability, and would have a lot of influence in Cloud City in the future. But recently, he seems to be courting death more and more. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were deep. He had grown up in a family clan since he was young, so he understood this kind of power very well. Bai Luchuan had disappointed the city lord in order to take revenge for his own grudge. This was simply a stupid move. Personal grudges were only for the sake of venting his anger. However, offending the city lord meant that his future training would be greatly affected. Perhaps the resources he would enjoy from now on could not be compared to before. But this was extremely good news for them. Not long after, Bai Qingli and Yang Qinxue arrived beside Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Miss Bailey, I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you with something later, Bai Qingli said with some difficulty. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, her delicate jade-like face showing some understanding. You mean to treat young Master Yang after the banquet? Looks like you already know. Bai Qingli smiled faintly. Don't worry, nothing will happen. Uncle Yang has always been magnanimous. You are so young, so he definitely won't hold it against you. You can rest assured. Yang Qinxue also said, That's right. I'll be here later, so you don't have to worry about anything else. It doesn't matter even if it can't be cured. This is a very difficult problem to solve. With you here, I naturally feel at ease, Bailey Hongzhuang said gently. I would like to ask, what kind of illness does young Master Yang have? She had also seen young Lingfeng's face. He didn't seem to have any very serious illness, nor did he seem to be poisoned. This made her feel very strange. Even if it was a hidden disease, it shouldn't have made City Lord Yang so angry. There must be something going on, but no one knew what it was. Chapter 6698. After a while, Yang Qinxue said, There's no need to rush. You'll know after you treat him. If you can't, then forget it. Looking at the two of them, Hong Zhuang understood that they didn't want to talk about this matter, so he didn't ask any further. After all, he had to help with the treatment after it was over. When the time came, he would naturally understand everything. During the banquet, other than Xiao He and Xiao Bai, who were eating happily, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were thinking about the treatment. In this absent-minded situation, the banquet ended very quickly. Not long after, Bai Qingli came to invite Bailey Hongzhuang to the guest room. Miss Bailey, come with me to the treatment. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, and immediately followed behind Bai Qingli. Bewitching and the others didn't leave either. When Bai Qingli noticed this scene, she couldn't help but say, Young Master D, why don't you rest in this garden for a while, and leave together after Miss Bailey is done? To tell you the truth, young Lingfeng's condition has always been a secret. He is, after all, the son of the city lord. If someone were to find out about it, it would inevitably cause some trouble. I hope you can forgive him. Hearing this, Bewitching and the others understood. Then we'll wait here. Don't worry, I'll take good care of her. Bai Qingli said this to Bewitching. Following behind Bai Qingli, Bailey Hongzhuang walked all the way into the city lord's mansion. The city lord's mansion was really huge. The place where they were at the banquet was only a corner of it. It wasn't until they arrived at their destination that Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that Bai Luchuan was still here. From the looks of it, he had to see the results today before he gave up. Miss Bailey is here. A cold glint appeared in Bai Luchuan's eyes. He had offended two elders today in order to completely drag down Bailey Hongzhuang. The so-called godly doctor was just an undeserved reputation. Lingfeng's illness has been going on for quite some time. He's seen many doctors, but none of them can cure him. Everyone says that you're the #1 alchemist in Shiyun City. I hope you can cure his illness. That would be great. Bai Luchuan revealed a look of concern. Although his words of concern landed in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears, it clearly didn't mean that. This guy is trying to kill me with excessive praise. Miss Bailey, please come in. Yang Han didn't intend to waste too much time. He opened the door and said. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed slightly and walked into the room. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Yang Lingfeng's face was a little ugly, a bit uneasy. He really didn't want to, but today's matter had come to this point. There had to be an outcome. It was just that his illness. Facing such a peerless beauty, it was really difficult to talk about it. After Bailey Hongzhuang noticed young Lingfeng's expression, she vaguely had some guesses in her heart. Looking at young Lingfeng's masculine appearance, it really didn't seem like it. Young Master Yang. I'm Bailey Hongzhuang. She slowly walked to the side and sat down before continuing. I'm here to treat you. No matter what the situation is, you can tell me. As a doctor, you can rest assured of the most basic confidentiality. You don't have to worry about it. As a doctor, there is no gender distinction. Chapter 66-99. Outside the house, Yang Han and the others also had worried looks on their faces. Father, I believe that Ling Feng's problem will definitely be cured. Yang Qinxue naturally understood her father's worries. Didn't Apothecary Wei say that Miss Bailey's understanding of medicine is different from many apothecaries? She has a brand new line of thought, that even Apothecary Wei was shocked. Perhaps with her help, this situation can really be resolved. Bai Luchuan was worried that no one would help raise Bailey Hongzhuang's status. Now that he heard Yang Qinxue say that, he immediately said with a smile, Isn't that so? Miss Bailey's attainments in this area have never been simple. I believe in her. Yang Han glanced at Bai Luchuan indifferently. If it wasn't for Bai Ziyuan, he would have long chased this fellow out. Ling Feng's problem indeed needs to be resolved as soon as possible. If a good young man like him were to develop an inferiority complex because of this problem, I'm afraid it will be troublesome in the long run. Bai Ziyuan's voice was slightly heavy. To any man, this problem was very difficult to speak of. However, it would be even worse if he were to hide his illness for fear of treatment. Yang Han sighed. How could he not know this? Stealing face after such a long time, he could clearly sense that Ling Feng was becoming more and more taciturn. In the past he was a rather sunny kid, but now, he only liked to be alone. Previously, a few apothecaries said that as long as we find the medical poison sage, Granny Hua, she can cure Ling Feng's illness. Unfortunately, this Granny Hua has disappeared for many years. No one knows where she went. Even though I've sent many people to inquire, there's no news at all. The medical poison sage, Granny Hua's medical skills and poison skills are top-notch. No one can compare to her. However, her temper is somewhat strange. Even if we know where she is, it's very difficult to ask her for help. However, since a few years ago, she has never appeared in front of the world again. She must have hidden herself from the world. Bai Ziyuan's gaze was complicated. Once such an expert hid herself from the world, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to find her. Let's give it a try today. I feel that Miss Bailey's medical skills are indeed very exquisite. Bai Qingli was filled with confidence in Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills. However, in this aspect, he really didn't believe it. After all, a girl probably wouldn't study this aspect. Jiyu, who loves his wife till the yindi, when Bailey Hongzhuang found out that young Lingfeng really had erectile dysfunction, she couldn't help but feel a little confused. According to her observations, young Lingfeng didn't look like it. Young Master Yang, when did this matter begin? Bailey Hongzhuang looked serious. Although she was not good at this, as a doctor, she naturally knew a little about it. It started when I went out to train 5 years ago, and saw a girl being humiliated. Young Lingfeng's expression was unsightly. He clearly didn't want to recall the scenes from back then. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood a little. This was not a physical illness, but a psychological one. No wonder she could not feel anything from his face. Young Master Yang, is it because this matter has affected you too much that you're acting like this? Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. If that's the reason, then you have to overcome your psychological barrier. Chapter 6700. Are you sure you've really overcome it? Many people hypnotize themselves into thinking that they've overcome it. But in reality, deep down, they're still the same. They can't be shaken at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was serious. She once heard from her mother-in-law that psychological problems were the most difficult to solve, because external influences were very small. One could only rely on oneself. Young Lingfeng was originally very repulsed by female pharmacists. Even when his father agreed in front of so many people just now, he did not refuse, because he wanted to save his father's face. But at this moment, looking at the serious and meticulous manner of the woman in front of him, The trace of hostility in his heart dissipated. Because from the beginning to the end, she did not show the slightest bit of ridicule. On the contrary, she had been very carefully thinking about the problem. I'm sure I've overcome it. Yang Lingfeng nodded. When I went out for training, it was my first time out. Usually, I've always been cultivating in the city lord's manor, so I've never experienced such a scene. So I was deeply shocked and somewhat depressed. But all these years, I've been exposed to a lot of things when I went out for training. I understand the cruelty between cultivators. Although this kind of thing doesn't happen often, many people might have experienced it before. I've deliberately experienced a lot of things because of this problem. My mentality also went from being nervous at the beginning to being calm later on. Listening to the man's steady narration, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. Everything he said did not seem to be forcing himself. Instead, it was from the bottom of his heart that he had gradually adapted to all of this. Perhaps he had not completely let go of that matter, but it was already a lot better. Logically speaking, if you're gradually getting better, you should show it physiologically. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. Yang Lingfeng smiled faintly. All these years, many pharmacists have treated me. Regarding this problem, they also couldn't understand it. Miss, if you don't understand, you don't have to worry. Maybe I haven't completely overcome it. Looking at the man's faint smile, Bailey Hongzhuang's impression of him changed. Originally, she only thought of him as a person with a strange temperament and did not like to talk much. But when he smiled, it was filled with a kind of spring breeze-like warmth. Thinking about it, before this incident, he must have been an optimistic and cheerful person. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully checked his pulse. His pulse was calm and steady, and it didn't seem like there was any problem. She had been a doctor for so long, but it was rare for her to encounter such a problem, where she could not find any clues. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to withdraw her hand and confirm that it was a psychological problem, there was suddenly an abnormal beat in her steady pulse. Noticing this, her expression couldn't help but change slightly for a moment, and the hand that was about to withdraw tightened again. When Yang Lingfeng saw the change in Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, he was also a little surprised. He maintained his original position and did not move. As time passed, Bailey Hongzhuang kept feeling Yang Lingfeng's pulse. At that moment, she had clearly noticed an abnormal heartbeat, but when she continued to take his pulse, it disappeared again. It was as if her previous discovery was simply an illusion. However, she was certain that that moment was not an illusion. It truly existed. Chapter 6701. Miss Bailey, what are you? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had not moved an inch, Yang Lingfeng felt that the atmosphere was a little awkward and could not help but ask. However, Bailey Hongzhuang only shook her head slightly, indicating that he should not speak. This minute change was not obvious and needed to be carefully observed. Yang Lingfeng also kept his mouth shut, but his heart was filled with anticipation. Could it be that she had discovered something? After waiting for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang finally felt that abnormal pulse, and her eyes lit up. She seemed to have discovered a problem. If it wasn't for the fact that she happened to run into this opportunity, she might have really missed it. This pulse was too subtle, and would not have been discovered if one did not pay attention. Master Yang, 5 years ago, other than the scene that you saw with your own eyes, did anything else happen? Hearing this question, Yang Lingfeng's eyes flashed with a trace of suspicion. When this happened that year, I was also poisoned, but after Brother Qing Li and the others arrived, my poison was quickly cured. After that, nothing else happened in the years of training. Did you discover something? You were poisoned. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. What kind of poison was it? That poison was very strange. According to the person who poisoned me, this poison was very powerful. However, although I was poisoned, it did not take much effort to cure the poison. So I always thought that he was just talking nonsense, and was just bluffing. Yang Lingfeng's face was calm, obviously disdainful of the man's words. This poison, I'm afraid there is indeed something strange about it. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows revealed a trace of thought. She didn't think about it before, so she didn't pay too much attention to it. At this moment, after discovering this clue, she carefully studied it and found the problem. Yang Lingfeng's expression changed. You're saying that the reason why I am like this is not because of a psychological problem, but because of the poison? None of the pharmacists had ever mentioned this before, and this thought shocked him greatly. If it was really because of the poison, then as long as the poison was cured, would he be able to recover? This problem has been in your body for a full 5 years, but it hasn't been discovered. Either the poison itself isn't very destructive, but the other party clearly said that this poison isn't simple, so it's very likely that this poison is a slow-acting poison. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression became serious. If this was the case, then everything had become complicated. This slow-acting poison often did not seem like much in the short term, but after a long time, it would penetrate deep into the internal organs and could cause death. Although Yang Lingfeng was not a pharmacist, he had seen many pharmacists over the years and had some understanding of this situation. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang did not say it, he knew the power of this slow-acting poison. All these years, this slow-acting poison for such a long time? Yang Lingfeng still couldn't believe it. Slow-acting poisons did exist, but it was rare to see one that could last for such a long time. Chapter 6702. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Yang Lingfeng's expression changed abruptly, as if he had recalled something. Seeing the change in the man's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask, "Have you recalled something?" Back then, I had said that the poison was very serious, and that ordinary antidote pills would not have any effect at all. Therefore, the antidote pills that they had brought out were of extremely high quality. It was said that this antidote pill seemed to be the antidote pill that the saint of medicine and poison, Granny Hua, had once sold. My father and the others had bought it at a high price. Granny Hua. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. She had not expected to hear Granny Hua's name again today. It seemed that Granny Hua's name was really resounding. Yang Lingfeng nodded slightly. Granny Hua's medical and poison skills can be said to be top-notch. Don't look at how Medicine Master Wei and the others' medical skills are not bad. They can't be compared to Granny Hua at all. All along, the pills that Granny Hua refined were hard to come by. However, Granny Hua had not appeared for a long time. Everyone said that as long as we could find Granny Hua, my problem would be easily solved. It's a pity that Granny Hua is nowhere to be found now. Bailey Hongzhuang heard this, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. It was true that they could not find Granny Hua now. However, the person in front of them was Granny Hua's disciple, Flourishing Age's favorite concubine. The demonic emperor takes advantage. Are you sure that other than some problems in this area, you don't feel any other discomfort? Bailey Hongzhuang confirmed once again. She had to understand the situation clearly before she could prescribe the right medicine. Yang Lingfeng nodded affirmatively. That's right. I'll take some of your blood first and study it when we get back. All right. The blood was bright red, and they could not see any problems. This was also within their expectations. It was only when Bailey Hongzhuang and Yang Lingfeng walked out of the room together that everyone came forward to welcome them. Miss Bailey, how was the diagnosis and treatment this time? Is there a way to treat Lingfeng's condition? Facing everyone's concerned gaze, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, I need to go back and study it before I tell you. Hearing this, everyone frowned. Yang Lingfeng was here. What was he going to study? Yang Han was a little disappointed. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang was unable to diagnose and treat him, so she made such an excuse. When she returned, would they still pursue the matter? Medical Garden. There was a sneer in the depths of Bai Liuchuan's eyes. He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't tell at all. She was just deliberately mystifying things. I thought that Miss Bailey's medical skills were outstanding, and that she would definitely have a solution. I didn't expect that I would disappoint Uncle Yang. I'm really sorry. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Bai Liuchuan indifferently but didn't say anything. You can't casually spread this matter. You must keep it a secret. Otherwise, once this news is known by others, Bai Liuchuan's expression turned sinister. He had long planned that after the woman returned, he would send people to spread the news near her residence. Once such a matter was spread, City Lord Yang and company would definitely lose face. When the time came, they would vent their anger on Bailey Hongzhuang, then, don't worry. A doctor is benevolent. I definitely won't tell anyone. Chapter 6703. Bai Luchuan looked at Yang Lingfeng in astonishment. He had only gone in for treatment, but his attitude had immediately changed. If he didn't know that Yang Lingfeng was powerless, he would have thought that something had happened. This change was too fast. That's right. It's not like Miss Bailey owes us anything. She's willing to help treat us, so we should thank her properly. Yang Qinxue couldn't stand it any longer. Indeed, she didn't know what conflict there was between Bai Luchuan and Bailey Hongzhuang. But it was too much for a man to target a woman. Bai Luchuan couldn't help but feel anxious when he saw everyone glaring at him. Immediately, he resented Bailey Hongzhuang even more. That's not what I meant. I'm just worried that this news will affect Lingfeng if it gets out. Don't worry. I believe in Miss Bailey's character. Yang Lingfeng glanced at Bai Luchuan. If this news really gets out, it must be someone else's doing. Bai Luchuan's heart palpitated. Yang Lingfeng was clearly referring to him. Lingfeng, I'm doing this for you. How can you target me like this? Yang Lingfeng couldn't be bothered. Miss Bailey's medical skills are indeed superb. She discovered that my illness might not be as simple as a psychological problem. The moment that was said, everyone present was taken aback. Yang Han took a few steps forward. Lingfeng, what do you mean? Upon seeing this, Yang Lingfeng looked apologetically at Bailey Hongzhuang. He understood her thoughts. She wanted to wait until she was certain before telling everyone to prevent them from having unnecessary expectations. However, Bai Luchuan was too much. He couldn't stand it any longer. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, indicating that she wasn't unhappy. Miss Bailey said that the reason why I'm like this might be because there's still poison in my body. Yang Han turned his head when he heard that. Miss, what do you mean? When I was taking young Master Yang's pulse, I realized that his pulse would fluctuate slightly every once in a while. This is a hidden problem. However, I've already taken the antidote back then, and it's been so long. I need some time to be sure. Yang Han's expression changed as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a hint of surprise. He didn't know that there was such a thing. If that was the case, then everything would be solved as long as the poison was removed. Then I'll have to trouble Miss Bailey. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I'll do my best. Bai Ziyuan looked at Apothecary Wei and said, Apothecary Wei, did you notice this when you took Lingfeng's pulse? Apothecary Wei shook his head slightly. This old man is puzzled. I didn't notice it when I took your pulse earlier. Miss Bailey, can you tell me how you noticed it? Ever since their conversation, Apothecary Wei knew that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't someone who liked to play to the gallery. Since what she said was true, why didn't he notice it when he was taking her pulse? Medicine Master Wei, young Master Yang's abnormality can only be detected once every 10 minutes. It's normal that you didn't notice it when you were taking his pulse. If I hadn't discovered it by chance, I definitely wouldn't have known. Why don't you give it a try now? Chapter 6704. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's suggestion, Apothecary Wei's interest was piqued. He turned to look at Yang Lingfeng. Young Master Yang, I wonder. Yang Lingfeng smiled and said, Apothecary Wei, feel free to take a look. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang was so young and didn't seem to be very convincing, he didn't know why he felt that there was no problem with Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment. As long as it wasn't a problem with his body, he felt much better. After Apothecary Wei took the pulse, he realized that the situation was the same as what he had discovered previously. However, after knowing that it would take 10 minutes, he patiently listened carefully. Yang Qinxue and the others also understood that this wasn't the time to make a ruckus. They all stood silently to the side, waiting for the diagnosis results. A moment later, Apothecary Wei's expression suddenly changed. There was a hint of surprise between his brows. Upon seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that Apothecary Wei must have discovered the problem. So that's how it is. I've taken the pulse many times, but I've never encountered it. It's fate that you encountered it. Apothecary Wei retracted his hand and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. Apothecary Wei, does that mean that everything Miss Bailey said is true? Apothecary Wei nodded slightly. That's right. There are indeed some problems in young Master Yang's body. It's very possible that the remaining poison hasn't been cleared. Miss Bailey's luck is really good. She actually happened to encounter it. She's really amazing. Bai Luchuan was about to die from anger. Bailey Hongzhuang's luck was actually so good. She could discover a problem that so many people hadn't discovered. Could there be anything more exaggerated? Seeing that Bai Luchuan attributed all of this to luck, Apothecary Wei retorted, "This isn't luck. It's because little friend Bailey's knowledge is stable. This slight change isn't obvious. If she wasn't careful enough, she definitely wouldn't have discovered it." This old man's diagnosis was under the premise that little friend Bailey reminded me. This slight difference is really easy to overlook. Bai Ziyuan and the others were secretly surprised by Apothecary Wei's praise. Even though Apothecary Wei admired Bailey Hongzhuang a lot, he wouldn't deliberately say such things just to praise her. Therefore, there was only one reason left. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly talented. Bai Ziyuan and Yang Han were very clear that Bailey Hongzhuang was the only one who was able to detect it, even though so many pharmacists were unable to do so. This was her strength. Miss Bailey really lives up to your reputation. At this moment, Yang Han no longer had any objections. He also understood why Bai Ziyuan and the others were so polite to Bailey Hongzhuang. Such a lady was truly admirable. City Lord Yang is too kind. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her fists. If it really is a remnant poison, as long as we can resolve it, young Master Yang's illness will be cured. Yang Qinxue and the others were pleasantly surprised. Sorry to trouble you. If Miss Bailey is able to cure Ling Feng, we will definitely do our best regardless of the reward. Yang Han also spoke. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang bowed with a smile. She didn't refute. Bai Ziyuan could tell that every city lord was quite wealthy. They hadn't been in the chaotic immortal realm for long, so they naturally wouldn't complain about having too many resources. It was only right to do things with money. Chapter 6705. Master has been gone for so long, but she still hasn't come back. What is she doing? Xiao He wandered on the spot. She wanted to go with her master, but she didn't expect to be despised for being noisy, so she could only stay here. Di Xiaofeng was also a little worried. Hongzhuang usually treats patients very quickly, but she took so long this time. Could it be that Bai Luchuan took the opportunity to cause trouble again? I think we can't just sit here and wait for death. Why don't we go and take a look? Zhong Limu couldn't hold it in anymore. At this moment, familiar footsteps gradually came from not far away. Hongzhuang is here. Di Beichen's lips curled up slightly. They were together day and night, so he could tell just by listening to the sound of footsteps. Bailey Hongzhuang walked closer and found that everyone was gathered together. It was obvious that they didn't have the slightest intention of admiring the scenery. Are you anxious from waiting? You're finally back. Di Beichen smiled faintly. If you didn't come back, everyone was prepared to rush in and bring you out. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang burst out laughing. It's not that exaggerated. What he said is true. Mo Yunjua said. Don't worry, it's nothing. It's just that young Master Yang's illness is a little special, so it took a little more time. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. Even if Bai Luchuan wants to deal with me, I have a lot of helpers. I think he will inevitably be punished when he goes back today. This guy is really troublesome. We should keep him in confinement to prevent him from harming others. Di Xiaofeng said. Let's go. Let's go back. Bailey Hongzhuang took 2 steps forward, and the others quickly followed. Although everyone was curious about Yang Lingfeng's illness, no one asked. Bai Qingli's attitude was already very clear. Asking would only make things difficult for Hongzhuang. On the other hand, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that everyone was curious, especially Gong Jun. From time to time, he would look at her with a curious expression. According to my judgment, young Master Yang should have been poisoned a few years ago, and the residual poison is still lingering in his body. Hearing this, Gong Jun also understood. So that's how it is. Looking at his mysterious appearance, I thought he had some incurable disease. He is the city lord's son. Naturally, we have to keep his illness a secret. Otherwise, wouldn't it be terrible if someone uses it to deal with him? Bewitching chuckled. Gong Jun nodded slightly. Indeed. Who asked him to be of such a high status? We have to be on our guard at all times. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the illusory form bead. When she came back earlier, Bai Qingli had already given it to her. Upon seeing the illusion form bead, Xiao He and Xiao Bai quickly came over, their faces filled with excitement. Illusion form bead. Their two claws almost fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's hand at the same time. She didn't stop them. In any case, this was meant for them. City Lord Yang only has one illusion form bead, so I'm afraid one of you will have to wait for a while. It is said that although this illusion form bead doesn't appear very often, it is not a rare treasure. As long as we spend some time looking for it, we will be able to find it. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want to see the two little ones disappointed. In fact, being able to find an illusion form bead in such a short time was already very difficult. Chapter 6706. Bewitching looked at the two little fellows tangled up and chuckled. I'll leave this illusion form bead to you two to decide. Our decision is ultimately unfair. Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts were the same. Little Black and Little White had been together since they first appeared. She didn't know how many years it had been. Although the two little fellows liked to bicker, their relationship had always been good. There was no need to worry that they would fight when the illusion form bead was in their hands. Thank you, Master, the two little fellows said together. Although Di Xiaofeng and the others didn't say anything, from their expressions, one could tell that they were quite curious about how the two little fellows would split the bead. Presumably, they would know when they came back in a few days. After returning, Bailey Hongzhuang began to study Yang Lingfeng's illness. She was very clear about the effects of her mother-in-law's detoxification pill. Ordinary poisons, even the most powerful ones, could be cured as long as one used her mother-in-law's detoxification pill. However, this poison could still retain a trace of toxicity. It was obvious that it wasn't simple. However, from Yang Lingfeng's words, she didn't know who made this poison. Presumably, this person's attainments in the art of poison were not simple. Which star did the male god come from? It seems that my wife is going to work hard on this matter. Bewitching poured a cup of tea and placed it beside Bailey Hongzhuang. This matter was set up by Luchuan. The city lord and the others have already seen through it. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up with a bright smile on her beautiful face. Originally, I didn't take it to heart. After all, this matter has nothing to do with us. However, after I met Yang Lingfeng, I realized that he's not bad. If I can cure him, it'll be great. With Yang Lingfeng's age, this kind of problem must be extremely uncomfortable. Previously it was fine, but seeing him protect her, she felt that he was much more pleasing to the eye. Bewitching nodded slightly. As long as you're happy, don't tire yourself out. Of course, there's another important reason why I'm doing this. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Illusion form bead? City Lord Yang obtained an illusory form bead. Perhaps I can ask him where he obtained the illusory form bead, or if he knows of any other places. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want the two little guys to be too entangled. It would be best if they could find them as soon as possible. Pantheon, protect Earth. As long as we can get some clues, we will have a direction. If there really isn't anything, then City Lord Yang will not treat us unfairly. The City Lord's family has always been very rich. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's mischievous and crafty appearance, Bewitching couldn't help but chuckle. Now that you've known Gong Jun for a long time, you've also become somewhat shrewd. Isn't that good? Bailey Hongzhuang tilted her head and asked. Bewitching reached out and touched her head. He shook his head and said, "No, my wife is naturally the best." Hee hee. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Today, I heard that Granny's reputation in the realm of chaotic immortals is so resounding. The elixirs she refined are sold at sky-high prices. Thinking about it, we almost ate Granny's elixirs like jelly beans in the abandoned immortal forest. If these people knew, I'm afraid they would go crazy. Granny has always been very generous to us. As Bewitching spoke, his gaze turned to the thing in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and said, "Could it be that Yang Lingfeng's illness is related to Granny?" Chapter 6707. We all know how effective Granny's detoxification pill is, but the poison was not completely neutralized even after taking the detoxification pill. I'm curious, so I want to find out. Hearing this, Bewitching finally understood. Hongzhuang was most concerned about this. Others may not know, but he knew how important Granny was to Hongzhuang. You don't have to worry about me. Rest well. Bailey Hongzhuang pulled Bewitching's hand and shook it. Yang Lingfeng has been poisoned for 5 years. There's no need to rush. Bewitching nodded. All right, I won't disturb you any further. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully checked Yang Lingfeng's blood. The residual poison was not obvious, so it would be difficult to find any clues. She was not worried. If it was so easy to find out, then Yang Lingfeng would have been poisoned for so many years. Compared to others, she knew the recipe for Granny Hua's detoxification pill very well, so it would be easier for her to study it. Back in the abandoned immortal forest, she had asked Granny what kind of poison her detoxification pill could not neutralize. Granny's answer was that other than the poison she created, all other poisons could not be neutralized. Perhaps other people would be too arrogant if they said such words, but she knew that Granny had absolute confidence and qualifications. Now such a poison had appeared. Since it was a very powerful poison, could it be a poison refined by Granny? If it wasn't, then wouldn't it mean that there was a very powerful poison master? It was a pity that Granny was not here. Otherwise, she would have found out very quickly. She could only study it slowly. She believed that as long as she spent more time, she would be able to find out. If there really was such a powerful poison master, then she would have to tell Granny about it in the future. While Bailey Hongzhuang was focused on her research, Medicine Master Wei was also focused on his research. Yang Han and the others wanted to see how Medicine Master Wei planned to study it. They were very curious about the results. However, Medicine Master Wei only said that he was going to close the door and study it carefully, then turn them away. Looks like Apothecary Wei is serious this time. Bai Ziyuan smiled faintly. Apothecary Wei had been in the city lord's mansion for many years, so he knew his personality very well. Once there was such a reaction, it meant that he really wanted to study it properly. He remembered that there was a time when he stayed at home for 3 whole months before coming out. Although Lady Bailey is young, she is truly formidable. So many alchemists were unable to discover it, but she was able to. If Lingfeng's problem can really be solved, then we must thank her properly. Yang Qinxua was full of anticipation. In the past 5 years, they had met many pharmacists, but none of them could find a solution. This was the first time they were so close to success. Brother Bai, I was right to come to your birthday celebration. Yang Han was in an extremely good mood. Even if he couldn't solve it for the time being, he still had to find the root cause. Then there was a possibility of a cure. It was much better than working hard in other areas without knowing the cause. Bai Ziyuan chuckled. Your illusory form bead is worth it. If not for my calligraphy and painting. Chapter 6708. Mayor Yang and his family stayed in Xiyun City for the time being. After seeing that Medicine Master Wei had gone into seclusion for research, they could roughly guess that Bailey Hongzhuang was doing the same. Yang Lingfeng and Yang Qinxua couldn't help but want to wander around Bailey Hongzhuang's residence. However, every time they were about to reach it, they stopped in their tracks, afraid that their rash appearance would disturb Hongzhuang's progress. When Gong Jun came out of the courtyard and saw the two hesitating, he couldn't help but ask in surprise, Are the two of you looking for Madam? Is Miss Bailey very busy right now? Yang Qinxua asked. Gong Jun nodded. Madam has been researching ever since she returned from the city lord's birthday celebration. I went in just now to see my boss. Madam seems to have been locked in her room the whole time. Hearing this, Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng looked at each other and understood. In that case, we won't disturb her, Yang Lingfeng said. Gong Jun smiled slightly. Don't worry, Madam's medical skills have always been very good. Since she has put in so much effort to research, she will definitely find a solution. We also believe in her, Tang Dynasty of North America said. Yang Lingfeng smiled. Ever since he met Bailey Hongzhuang, he understood that she was serious. She wasn't someone who coveted fame, but real talent. You don't know, but the pills refined by Madam have always been the most popular. Compared to pills of the same grade, the effects of her pills are much better than ordinary pills. Gong Jun's face was full of pride. Now that the pills refined by Madam had completely become the signature of Xianbao Pavilion, he didn't sell them casually, but limited them. At first, he was a little worried that this might affect Xianbao Pavilion's business, but now it seemed that there was no impact at all. On the contrary, business was getting better and better. However, Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng were shocked after hearing this. Is what you said true? Many people in the city know about this. How can it be false? Gong Jun smiled and waved his hand. My Immortal Treasure Pavilion has never been a match for the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion. But since Madam and Boss came out, business has been getting better and better. Why don't we go take a look at your Immortal Treasure Pavilion? Yang Qinshua's interest was piqued. Rebirth, I'm on my Oji shore. Gong Jun nodded and smiled. If Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were here, they would know what Gong Jun was up to once they saw his smile. I heard that the medicinal pills refined by Granny Hua in the past were much better than those refined by ordinary alchemists. I didn't expect Miss Bailey to be able to achieve this. It's really amazing. Yang Lingfeng sighed. Even though he hadn't seen it yet, he knew that Gong Jun wouldn't lie about such things. No wonder she was able to discover your problem. That's why she's so good, Yang Qinxue praised. I don't seem to have seen Bai Luchuan recently. Gong Jun pretended to ask casually. A trace of disgust appeared in Yang Qinshue's eyes. That guy went overboard at the birthday banquet. Later on, he targeted me everywhere. Now he's being grounded. I don't think he'll be out for a while. Chapter 6709. Wait for Bai Luchuan to figure it out. Gong Jun chuckled. I'm afraid he won't be able to figure it out for the rest of his life. Hearing the mockery in Gong Jun's words, the two didn't mind at all. After this incident, their good impression of Bai Luchuan had been completely destroyed. When the three arrived, they found that the Immortal Treasure Pavilion was indeed as busy as a marketplace. It looked very lively. In contrast, the business of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion opposite them was rather quiet. Pills, runes, and formations were all dominated by the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. After all, the Myriad Treasures Pavilion was like a starving camel that was still bigger than a horse. They still had the advantage in terms of pill furnaces and weapons. The standard of the refiners in Xi'an City couldn't compare to the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. Now they could only rely on this aspect to maintain their business. Brother Gong, your Immortal Treasure Pavilion is really amazing. This is the first time I've seen someone open their own shop and actually snatch the business of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. It's really a first. Yang Lingfeng was surprised. The Myriad Treasures Pavilion also existed in Qingyang City, but in terms of business, the other shops couldn't compare at all. Gong Jun chuckled. It's all because of Boss and Madam. When I opened this shop previously, business was half dead. Look around and see if there's anything you like. I'll give it to you. That won't do. Since we're doing business, how can we give it to you? Yang Lingfeng immediately refused. We're all friends. There's no need to be so polite, Gong Jun said. Yang Qinxue waved her hand. If you're willing to let us buy it, then we'll take a look. If you insist on giving it to us, then we'll have to leave. Seeing this, Gong Jun looked troubled. He could only helplessly say, all right. I'll give you a discount. That should be fine, right? Haha, all right. When the people in the Immortal Treasure Pavilion saw Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng, Surprise appeared in their eyes. Aren't they the children of the Qingyang city lord? I didn't expect them to have such a good relationship with the shopkeeper of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. It seems that the Immortal Treasure Pavilion's background isn't simple. Although the Myriad Treasures Pavilion is backed by the Immortal Region's Myriad Treasures Pavilion, in this city, their influence can't compare to the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. The items from the Immortal Treasure Pavilion are not bad. With such a background, there is no need to worry about them in the future. Gong Jun smiled as he accompanied Yang Lingfeng and Yang Lingfeng in their selection. Listening to the discussions around them, he felt a burst of happiness in his heart. He had invited Yang Lingfeng and Yang Lingfeng for this purpose, and now it seemed that the effect was excellent. At this moment, Bai Qingli also appeared in the Myriad Treasure Pavilion. In an instant, the gazes of everyone in the store changed. No matter what, Qingyang City was still a neighboring city, but Bai Qingli was the son of the city lord. At this moment they were all gathered here. How could this be? So you're here. I went out and looked around but didn't see you. If I didn't happen to hear someone talking about you, I wouldn't have been able to find you. Bai Qingli smiled. Yang Qinxue smiled. We heard that Miss Bailey's pills are not simple, so we wanted to come and see for ourselves. I'm ashamed to say this. Although I've long heard of this name, I've never seen it before. Since we're here today, why don't we give it a try? Bai Qingli's interest was also piqued. Before he met Bailey Hongzhuang, he had heard of this rumor and felt that it was too exaggerated. Now that he thought about it, it was very likely that this was the truth. Chapter 67:10. Bailey Hongzhuang was concentrating on her research in the room. Gong Jun had also sent over quite a few medicinal herbs for her to experiment with. It had to be said that this poison was indeed more complicated than she had imagined. Over the past few days, she had already tried many different scenarios, but none of them matched. Although the difficulty was high, the more it was so, the more it piqued Bailey Hongzhuang's interest. She did not believe that she would not be able to figure it out. Bewitching was cultivating in the room. Other than forcing Hongzhuang to rest when it was time to rest, he usually let her do as she pleased. Speaking of which, it was strange. After Xiao He and Xiao Bai obtained the illusory form pearl, they claimed that they wanted to go into closed-door cultivation. After closing the door, they hid in the room next door. For the past few days, these two little fellows had also been in closed-door cultivation. No one knew what they were up to. However, the illusory form pearl was a great supplement for monstrous beasts. There was no need to worry about any harm, so he did not pay too much attention to it. One day, two screams suddenly came from the room next door. Hearing this, Bewitching immediately stood up and looked at the room next door. Could it be that Xiao He and Xiao Bai had transformed into human form? Even Bailey Hongzhuang, who was concentrating on her research, quickly came over after hearing the commotion. Her fair face was filled with surprise. What's going on? Maybe Xiao He and Xiao Bai have found something, Bewitching said. The two of them looked at each other, and a trace of curiosity rose in their hearts. These two little fellows had always been noisy. They wondered what they looked like now. Come, let's go take a look. Bewitching pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked towards the room next door. Just as the two of them were about to push open the door and enter, the two little fellows' nervous voices came from inside. Don't come in first. Hearing this, the two of them stopped abruptly at the door and asked curiously, What's wrong with you two? Have you successfully transformed into human form? A moment later, the door was opened. However, after opening the door, Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Xiao still saw Xiao He and Xiao Bai in their original appearances. There was still a trace of panic on their faces. What's wrong with you? No, nothing. The two beasts hurriedly drew, but their expressions clearly showed that they had a guilty conscience. Which one of you took the illusion form bead? Bewitching looked at the two little fellows. Judging from their appearance, the two little fellows were exactly the same. He couldn't tell what was different about them, so he couldn't tell who had eaten them. Master, don't get involved in this matter, Xiao He said with a smile. We've already decided that before we find the other illusory form bead, we'll keep appearing in this state, right? Xiaobai. Xiaobai nodded repeatedly. That's right, this is the best. Faced with the two little fellows' explanation, Bailey Hongzhuang had a suspicious look on her face. She didn't believe what they said at all. If that's really the case, you can keep one illusion form bead and use it together when you find the second one. But now, you won't have the same problem as Xiao Xuanzi, right? Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly asked. As soon as she said this, Xiao He and Xiao Bai couldn't help but cough in fright. They waved their hands and said, No. You've been with me for so many years. What's there to be embarrassed about? Chapter 67:11. Bailey Hongzhuang was all smiles. Don't be so secretive. You have to show it to us. Master, it's better if you don't. Are you going to show it to us or not? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes, and her tone was threatening and enticing. I'll reward you with good food tonight. Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked conflicted. After a long while, they finally said slowly, All right then. In the next moment, under their expectant gazes, Xiao He transformed. However, when the two of them saw her transformed appearance, they couldn't help but be stunned. Their eyes were filled with shock. Because the Xiao He in front of them didn't transform into a stunning beauty or a distinguished scholar. Instead, she was a delicate little girl. For a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang wondered if she had seen wrongly. However, after checking again and again, she was sure that she hadn't seen wrongly. However, Yan Che and Xiao Xuanzi hadn't grown up as long as Xiao He. They had already become adults. Xiao He had lived for so many years, but after transforming, she was still a child. It was truly shocking. Perhaps, this is the difference between white light spirits. Bailey Hongzhuang sank into deep thought. Then, a smile bloomed on her face again. She reached out and pinched Xiao He's cheeks. This little girl is really good looking. Her little face is so tender. You can even squeeze water out of it. Xiao He blushed. She pursed her lips and said, Master, don't tease me. I'm telling the truth. Your appearance is indeed exquisite and beautiful. Bailey Hongzhuang praised from the bottom of her heart. There were many good-looking little girls, but Xiao He's transformed appearance was the most beautiful one she had ever seen. Such an adorable appearance that seemed to be carved from jade could melt anyone's heart. At first, I couldn't quite imagine what you would look like after transforming. But now, it seems that you are indeed very suitable. She turned to look at Xiao Bai. If we find the other illusory form orb, Xiao Bai should become a cute little boy. Bewitching nodded slightly. That should be the case. Just as the two of them were talking, Little White suddenly changed, turning into a jade-like little boy. Seeing this, the two of them were stunned. What was going on? There was only one illusory form orb, but the two little fellows had transformed? What's going on? Bewitching realized that something was wrong and asked. Xiao He and Xiao Bai, we split the illusory form orb into two halves. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. No wonder the two little guys had turned into children. It turned out that the amount of illusory form beads wasn't enough. If an entire illusory form orb could allow them to transform into an adult, then after eating only half of it, they could only transform into a child. You two are really bold. One illusory form orb is only enough for one demonic beast. You two actually decided to split it. Fortunately, there were no problems. Otherwise, it would be terrible. Xiao He and Xiao Bai lowered their heads and said helplessly, We also didn't expect this to happen. It's just that one illusory form orb is really too difficult to split. Forget it. Isn't it good that you two are like this? Although you look a little younger, at least you've transformed into a human. Once we find the other illusory form orb, you two can consume the other half. I think this problem will be solved. Chapter 67:12. Seeing that their master did not blame them, Xiao He and Xiao Bai finally relaxed and returned to their original playful selves. Thank you, master. Bewitching reached out and picked up Xiao Bai, then turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. If we bring these adorable little dolls back, grandmother and the rest will definitely like them very much. Bailey Hongzhuang also picked up Xiao He. These two little dolls, who looked only 3 years old, were indeed very good-looking. The more one looked at them, the more one liked them. However, when she heard Bewitching's words, she understood what he meant. Grandmother had always hoped that they would have a child soon. However, this kind of thing also depended on fate. If Yen Che and Xiao Xuanzi see you like this, they will definitely find it very interesting. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. These little fellows used to be together all day long. Ever since Yen Che and the rest had transformed, they had begun to look forward to Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Their reactions would probably be even more intense than theirs when they saw this scene. As soon as she said this, Xiao He and Xiao Bai's expressions instantly changed. No, we can't let them see this. If they were seen like this, they would recall how they used to flaunt their seniority. Would they still have any face left? Since they're already here, let's just take things as they come. They won't mind. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. They all know about the illusory form pearl. Even if we intentionally hide it, don't tell me they won't be able to see through it? Xiao He and Xiao Bai instantly sighed. You'll have to pay for what you've done. What did it feel like to go out with a little doll in your arms? When Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching brought Xiao He and Xiao Bai out the door, everyone turned their heads. Originally, Bewitching and Li Du were already very attractive. In addition, these two little dolls were so cute that everyone couldn't help but take a few more glances at them. Look, there's actually such a pretty little doll. This is the first time I've seen such a cute little doll. Could they be Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's children? Isn't this too beautiful? It's all because of their good genes and good-looking parents. That's why their children are so outstanding. Everyone sighed one after another. This family was really too eye-catching when they went out. Xiao He wrapped her arms around Bailey Hongzhuang's neck. Although she was treated as her master's child, she had to admit that it was a different feeling to go out like this. Master, you and the male master have to work harder and give birth to a baby soon. This way, Xiao Bai and I can take care of our younger siblings together, right? Bailey Hongzhuang pinched Xiao He's cheeks. Then we'll have to look forward to finding the illusion form pearl soon. Otherwise, if we get pregnant, won't others say that I'm too good at giving birth? Going out with 3 children. That scene was indeed a little hard to imagine. Xiao He's expression stiffened. It's okay, your husband doesn't mind. Bewitching's lips curled up slightly. His voice was calm and gentle. Bailey Hongzhuang's face reddened. You don't mind, but I do. I believe that no matter if it's grandmother or maternal grandmother, they won't mind. Bailey Hongzhuang chose to keep quiet. She had never been able to win against Bewitching on this kind of issue. However, the scene of carrying Xiao He and Xiao Bai out together made her look forward to it. If she really had a child with Bewitching, she wondered who this child would look like. Chapter 67:13. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at the restaurant, they immediately attracted the attention of many people. Many ladies' eyes softened when they saw the 2 adorable little children. Such adorable children, I really want to hug them. Xiao He and Xiao Bai could feel the constant stares coming from all around them. This was the first time they realized how terrifying the stares of humans could be. They could not wait to pack them up and bring them home. When you're outside, you can't run away with strangers when you meet them. You must follow them closely, okay? Bailey Hongzhuang also found this scene extremely amusing. She reached out and patted Xiao He's head. After we're done eating, I'll bring you to have some new clothes made. The 2 little ones were simply too adorable. They would definitely look even better in some new clothes. Xiao He looked at her master helplessly. Sure enough, women change at times like this. You weren't like this in the past. Bewitching looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's playfulness and allowed her to do as she pleased. It would be nice for her to experience what it was like to be a mother as soon as possible. That's right, Gong Jun knows of a cloth clothing store that's excellent. Can you ask him where the store is? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Bewitching. Everyone had said that the clothes that Gong Jun had made for them were not bad. Even she was very satisfied with them. Bewitching smiled faintly. Don't worry, I've already informed Gong Jun that he's coming. Xiao He and Xiao Bai could not help but panic when they heard that Gong Jun was coming. They were not mentally prepared for this. This won't do. We have to hide quickly. The two little ones were contemplating whether they should revert back to their original appearances in front of everyone. However, wouldn't that be a little inappropriate? Just as the two little guys were in a dilemma, a familiar voice was heard. Boss. Then a round figure quickly ran over. However, when he got closer and closer, he also noticed the two little dolls that looked like they were carved out of jade. Instantly, his kind gaze turned into horror, astonishment, and disbelief. Gong Jun stared blankly for a long while before suddenly crying to Bewitching. Boss, when did you have two children? You didn't even tell me. This is too much. Look, this child has grown up so well. He has completely inherited your genes. Gong Jun looked at the two little cuties happily. Come tell uncle what you like. Uncle will buy it for you. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh when she saw how quickly Gong Jun assumed the identity of an uncle. This guy was quite shrewd when it came to other things. But he didn't use his brain when it came to this kind of thing. Xiao He and Xiao Bai couldn't help but roll their eyes. If it was a girl showing such an adorable expression, it would have been fine. However, as a man, what was he trying to do by showing such an expression to us? No need anymore, Xiao He said through gritted teeth. Gong Jun ignored her and directly carried Xiao He. Haha, I haven't seen such an adorable child in a long time. You're the child. Your whole family is made up of children. Xiao He couldn't help but curse. This guy wanted nothing more than to press his face against hers. What's with this greasy feeling? Chapter 67:14. Of course I'm familiar. I'm Xiao He. Little He raised its voice to emphasize who it was. Hearing this, Gong Jun was so scared that he let go of his hand. Xiao He also stood directly on the table. Oh my god, you're Xiao He? That's right, that's me. Xiao He put her hands on her hips and said aggressively. Her words were full of vigor, but with that soft face, it didn't seem convincing at all. Gong Jun looked at Xiao He, and then his gaze fell on the little boy beside her. So this is Xiao Bai? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but nod. You're right. Gong Jun held his head and said with a blank face. It's only been a few days, what happened? Why did it become like this? That's right. The illusory form pearl. But isn't there only one illusory form pearl? How did the two of them turn into human forms? Thoughts kept appearing in Gong Jun's mind. Bewitching calmly ordered a few dishes, and then pulled Bailey Hongzhuang to sit down. It was better to wait for Gong Jun to recover from his shock before asking. Who am I? Where am I? What happened? After struggling for a while, Gong Jun finally accepted this fact, and turned to seek confirmation from Bewitching. Boss, they couldn't have eaten the illusory form pearl together, right? That's right. Bewitching nodded. I think that half of the illusory form pearl's effect wasn't enough, so they turned into children. Gong Jun sighed. You guys are really amazing. Normal people wouldn't dare to try something like this. Gong Jun, that's why you have to help us gather more information and find the other illusory form pearl as soon as possible. Xiao He and Xiao Bai each stood on either side of Gong Jun, holding his hand with an anxious look on their faces. Gong Jun opened his hands and hugged the two little guys to sit on his lap. With a kind face he said, Why are you in such a hurry? I think the two of you are pretty good like this. We don't usually have children around us. Don't you think you look so cute? Xiao He and Xiao Bai's faces immediately darkened. Don't talk nonsense. Anyway, we need to get bigger as soon as possible. Good. Gong Jun nodded helplessly. I've been trying to find out more about this recently, but because there aren't many illusion form beads, I haven't received any news yet. I don't think you need to be too anxious. Since this thing exists, it will definitely be found. It's just that it will take a little more time. Seeing Gong Jun's serious expression, the two little guys sighed. Who would have thought that things would turn out like this? It was too late for regrets. That's right. I want to take them to make some new clothes later. Take us there, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Gong Jun nodded repeatedly. No problem. Make as many as you want. Leave it to me. Just as the dishes were served and everyone was about to eat, suddenly, a surprised voice was heard. Io, what a coincidence to bump into you guys when we came out to eat. Turning around, everyone saw Xiren and Shangguan Yingying walking over with faces full of joy. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.